Let's get more reaction to the medium-term budget policy statement announced by the Finance Minister today. That's one of the controversial aspects, $10.5 billion allocated to SAA, as well as a proposed freeze on public sector wages for a period of 3 years. Economist Thabi Leoka joining us now. Thabi, thank you for being with us. Can you tell us what you think of this SAA allocation? A lot of tongues wagging about that. And also, the public sector wage bill freeze or the salary increase freeze, will that fly with government workers?
So I always thought that this would be a very contentious one with SAA because this is a lot of money that we don't have. And, looking at the text messages that have come to SABC and also Twitter messages, it's quite clear that many are not happy with that amount of money being allocated to SAA, which is and has been a failing aviation company. And so the question also I ask is that then what happens afterwards? So we bail out SAA and we pay the BRP $10 billion, and then we need to pay more money for it to start flying as we reach this new airline. So it is going to be a liability in years to come.
In June, the Finance Minister was talking about closing the jaws of the hippo, which is this yawning debt, but now the mouth got a bit more open. That's something you're very involved in. Is the balance that was announced today, economic growth on the one hand, reining in debt on the other, is it fair enough?
It was always going to be difficult during a pandemic to rein in debt or to cut expenditure. I think that would kill the economy if we did that. So I do side with Treasury on this one, that rather put money into the economy that will help support it and not put very strict rules in terms of this passive and active scenarios that they had at the supplementary budget, where they would risk actually not keeping up with the estimates that were set up in the active scenario. So this one gives them a little bit of breathing room. So they did increase it somewhat, and that doesn't mean that they are compelled to reach the new limits. It's just that they can actually do better, and it looks a lot more credible than before, when they had a very strict active scenario, and the risk is that they wouldn't be able to commit to the active scenario. So I think that the current estimates are more reasonable, that we will reach a sustainable debt level in the 5 years' time, and it releases the pressure of government to try to reach the initial estimates. I think now they have a little bit of breathing room to then deal with the debt.
Well, Thabi, you're part of the Presidential Economic Advisory Committee that reportedly wanted this a bit more spending, leaning away from this very tight austerity. What have you been advising? Would that committee have even wanted, or would you have wanted the spending to the spending to be allowed to go even a bit more higher? We're heading to 95% of GDP. Would you have wanted 100% or more?
So we didn't say that the spending should increase. We just said that we shouldn't put the brakes too quickly so that the economy suffers. And just on the Presidential Economic Advisory Group, so we advise the President, we don't advise Cabinet. Fiscal policy, by and large, is a political decision. So what we advise the President doesn't necessarily have to be translated into policy. There's a lot of process that goes into that. And as I said, it's political, so that means that there's a lot of engagement with other parties within the process, budgeting process, that need to be considered, be it Labour, be it the NADLAC process, the political parties, cabinet, etc. So what we advise to the president does not necessarily have to be translated into policy.
Yeah.
That is up to a bigger, broader process that decides on.
Sure. The finance minister did lay out a very interesting argument as to why government should not spend its way out of the crisis, even though there is going to be a little bit more spending. He said that in previous years, spending R1 in the budget would stimulate growth of more than R1, but that doesn't fly anymore. So spending R1 means less than R1 in returns. Surely that points to all the structural things that are wrong with our economy.
Absolutely, and it also speaks to rather adopting the reforms that are necessary to change the structure of the economy, and which we haven't been doing. So I definitely think that will unlock some of the issues, the structural issues that the countries face. So again, I don't think that we need to strangle the economy by being very strict in terms of consolidation, but at the same time, it's necessary to not spend inappropriately. And if we do spend, it must be the type of spending that would generate growth. And that's what we want to see. Yeah. And I think that government is aware of that because they are pushing infrastructure in development as a key to unlocking growth.
Yeah.
And so I think that is the right direction. Going to the right direction in terms of focusing on infrastructure and also focusing in areas that will generate growth. Yeah. That's why I think a lot of people are not happy with allocating resources towards SAA when we know that this entity will not perform optimally given that we are in the middle of a pandemic and also globally not many people are flying.
And the money has come from health spending and from education as well. It's incredible. You've alluded to something else, the infrastructure spending, and earlier the president announced that economic recovery plan. It's finally being costed. Are the details all there? Are they good enough? And Thabi, is this big enough? Creating infrastructure to create jobs, to create an environment where investors feel like they want to invest in South Africa. Is it going to work?
It will work if we do it properly. I think that a lot of investors are interested, and not just international investors, actually South African investors are interested and willing to invest in infrastructure. They have been doing that for many years. Many of our main roads have been funded by the private sector. And so what the private sector would like is a pipeline of projects so that there's certainty. They also would like that, the concessioning process be very transparent. And so once we get this right and we have a pipeline of projects, then everyone is aligned. The banks are aligned, the fund managers are aligned, the construction companies are aligned, and then we start employing people to ensure that this happens. So I think that, there's a lot that is being done by the presidency, and we just need a lot of buy-in, we need certainty, we need timelines, and we need transparency.
All right, thank you very much, Economist Thabi Leoka, and we'll bring you more reaction to that medium-term budget throughout the show after 7 o'clock.